Perfect. Hello, welcome to the Unnecessary Guffness YouTube channel. Our first kind of proper upload, I guess. This is a little interview I did about a week ago with a couple of members of the Rainbow Rex's Lacrosse Club. Huge thank you to Edmund and Charlie for jumping on this with me, letting me be there. Well, being my first interviewees. I've never really done anything like this before, but pretty easy. Just get two really interesting people on and chat. This is the first in what will hopefully be a series of interviews with members of the UK lacrosse community, hopefully from, across the country if we can, talking about different aspects of the game, of sports in general. This was a video I planned on doing a while ago. I was hoping to release it during Pride Month, but I've been very busy and a little bit lazy since the end of university, so here it is. But it's never too late for a video. It's never the wrong time for a video like this. It's a really important topic. I'm glad it was, the first one we could cover in these interviews. And I'll stop rambling now. I do plenty of that in the actual video, and I will let you enjoy what we have to say. We do like a intro where I do all the annoying YouTube stuff like, "Hi guys, welcome, blah blah blah," before, and I'll just edit that in. So I guess just jump straight into it, and I'll start with doing the lazy interviewer thing of saying, can you guys introduce yourselves, tell us how long you've been playing lacrosse for, how you got into it and all that stuff, and what your position is within the Rainbow Rexes at the minute. Charlie, do you want to go first, because you're up on my screen right now?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Charlie. I've been playing lacrosse now for 3 years. Started at university in Derby, joined the local club, been just basically playing as much lacrosse as I can ever since. I kind of first heard about the Rainbow Rexes probably about a year and a half ago, and sort of tried to learn a bit more about them and how I could get involved. And now here I am as the communications officer for the Rexes. So I look after the social media and the website and just kind of get involved in all sorts, really.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ed Connolly, he, him. So I'm the current president and founder, actually, of the Rainbow Rex Lacrosse Club. So I kind of got into it because, well, I set it up, and it was me and another guy sort of were just, we were both in lacrosse, and we were just thinking that we really loved the sport, but we wanted, to sort of see it maybe come a little bit further into the 21st century, shall we say, and like maybe set up a club that was a bit more sociable, but also very much there for anyone that maybe didn't have a club to play in, a touring team to play in, that kind of thing. In terms of lacrosse, I've played for many years. I really got into it at college level more seriously. So I played for college, but then also did club and stuff. And I must have been after sort of I finished uni and stuff. I played for a couple of years, and I really thought, oh, this is it. I actually sold all my kit. I think I donated my men's kit to an old club, and then 2 years later sort of set up the Rainbows. So I had to buy it all again. So, once you start playing, you don't leave.
Yeah, but it's interesting how you both said about you started playing, because Charlie, when you said you started at uni, a lot of the people we asked started at uni. It's one of them. But it's interesting that you said, Edmund, that you started at college. I don't know any colleges that have teams. Is that well, I guess have you always been from around London? Is that a London thing?
I'm actually from, so I'm actually from Hertfordshire, which is all right, sort of just near, same, it's southeast. There's lots of clubs here, and I think just it was more, I grew up with two brothers, so we had lots of throw around, lots of sport. Obviously no reason you can do that without having a brother, but as in we often played little team sports because we kind of could. So, from a very young age, I started rugby when I was about 6, I think. So sort of started that quite young, and I'd always been competitive. And I think what drew me to lacrosse was, I like it as a sport. It's quite unique, but I really liked the fact that it kind of brought together lots of skills from lots of different sports. I played tennis, and actually shooting in lacrosse is very similar to tennis serving. It had got a lot of the physicality of rugby, but it had the fitness rather of athletics that I was doing at the time. So it was a good melting pot for me to go into. And certainly I never thought I would stick with it, if I'm completely honest, because I just did it for a bit of fun.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of got more and more. And I think definitely what I found now is it's probably, I still play other sports on the side, but it's probably the sport I do the most sociably. and it's my most sort of enjoyable sport. Like, I'm not particularly bothered about the competitive side of it. I like winning, of course, we all do. But like, I think lacrosse has quite a unique setup like that, because so many of us are there to obviously play a serious game, but have fun whilst doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just think I've noticed going to university, especially the social side of it around lacrosse, you know, we always say, and I'm sure everyone says that, oh, lacrosse is the best social aspect throughout the university of all the teams. And I'm sure every team says that, but I don't know, I believe it. I fully buy into it. I do think that lacrosse being kind of niche is really great for
I think if you're crazy enough to play lacrosse, then you're going to be a good time at a social. You know, tends to be a good laugh, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. What is it that drew you to lacrosse eventually? I know you said you started playing at uni, but why lacrosse, I guess? Why the hell did you pick up lacrosse?
Well, this is the thing. I never considered myself a sporty person, but I would always like to just get involved with stuff, like anything. Like, I'm always volunteering for whatever. I mean, here I am. And my best friend got into lacrosse. I think he'd heard about it before and was interested in it. He might have had a friend who was in it as well. But he just seemed to have a really good time, not only when playing it, and he'd always like get excited about matches and stuff, but he'd also just have so many funny stories from like the socials, and he made so many good mates through it. And it was something that I was a bit jealous of. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I think I want that for me. So I finally kind of gathered myself up to join the club after meeting a few of the members who all seemed really nice, and just never looked back. Like, from the second I started playing it, I was like, oh yeah, this is for me. I really like this. I'm very naturally competitive. I constantly kind of, I like to have a skill that I'm working on at any given time. So lacrosse is good for me because it starts off really hard. Like, you don't know how to use a stick, passing and throwing. It all feels so bizarre, but you can kind of see your progress really quickly. And that was just really fun for me. I liked that, basically, and it kind of snowballed to where I am now, where I've been the president of the club. I'm on this committee for the Rainbow Rexes. I've got my refereeing qualification. I'm just sort of trying to get as stuck into it as possible, really.
Yeah, you're definitely right. There is like a real, quite steep, but also quite quick learning curve with lacrosse. And it's probably, you know, a big part of the reason that people stick with it, despite, you know, not knowing what to do when they first pick up a stick, is that kind of community aspect that you only get in a sport where it's like, oh no, don't worry, I didn't know which way to hold the stick up however many years ago. It's fine, you'll get to it. And I don't know, I feel like it's, you know, that feeling, that unique community kind of lends itself really well to something like the Rainbow Rexes, you know. It kind of feels natural that something like the Rexes would come out of a sport with a community,
absolutely,
you know, as strong as lacrosse. But how long have the Rexes been going for now?
So it's actually our 5th anniversary next year, unbelievably. I know. So counting backwards, you know, do we count COVID years? So does it count? Well, yeah, so obviously we're in our 4th year now going in. So we started 4 years ago, and when we started, we literally had 8 players, went to an 8s team, left 8s team, so I went to an 8s tournament. We left with 10 players, which is always a good sign if you can recruit other players.
We often leave with less players than we started with.
Yeah,
exactly. So if you come away with more, something was right. So we went, and back then, just because of the way we set it up, it was just a men's team, just because that was who we managed to get around. And we had absolutely, I mean, we also had a great time doing it. And really what we just couldn't believe was the response we got from not just lacrosse players, quite frankly. It was from, you know, tournament organizers to people just, whether they were in the LGBTQI community or just sports more generally. So then we thought, all right, we'll give mixed a go, because we had a few players quite keen to join us. So we went to a mixed tournament. We won that, which was unexpected and great. It was great. It was playing a very good team in the final, and they were very, very good competition. But I think it was one of those ones where we were still learning each other's names as we were running on the pitch, that kind of thing. So we won that, and then a year later we set up the women's team, and now we're here with 3 full teams, and it's kind of unbelievable how much we've grown, particularly considering that we're slightly unique in, obviously, in the lacrosse world, but also even in the LGBTQ sort of sport world, in the way we do things and what we're about. So I think it's just been unexpected, but great to see.
Yeah, I mean that's a really quick growth going from, let's say 8 players to like 3 teams in the space of, I guess we'll say 4 years, even though we've not really been playing. And we'll come back to that, really what COVID's been like. But over those 3 years, I know you said that initially, the response was really good. You got people joining at the games. With you not, I know you're not really based in like Nimla or Semler, right? You said you're like a touring team. How was that, and obviously being the unique team that you are, what's your relationship like with other clubs across the UK? And does that kind of vary between the men's, the women's, and the mixed team? Like, do you have different relationships, and is the response from other teams always been positive, or
I think the response is pretty much always positive. Like, I think, and kind of going back to what I said earlier about how everybody who joins the course is usually a little bit bonkers anyway. Yeah. I think everyone's really excited about, what we represent and how we can kind of form those relationships with other teams. I mean, the majority of our members don't just play for the Rexes, they also have a local team, because people usually want, to be part of the league as well as sort of go to tours and tournaments and stuff like that. So we have grown so quickly because of those relationships with other clubs, where their members who do want to kind of get involved with the Rexes can do both because of the sort of club that we are. And along with that, if we do want sort of regular fixtures, we do have to rely on friendlies, and we never have any problems getting friendlies organised because there's loads of clubs want to get involved with us. And not just like kind of like what Ed said earlier about how they went to a match with 8 players and left with 10. Every time we kind of play a game with the opposite team, they end up kind of speaking to us after and said, I think I'm interested in getting involved. I want to know more about what you guys do. And that's kind of lent itself to our growth. And it also, it makes the LGBTQ plus lacrosse members across the country feel more comfortable about kind of straddling both of those communities and how they're not isolated. You can do both at the same time. So I think, to summarize, like our relationship with the clubs all across the country have only been fantastic, really.
Yeah, you mentioned, obviously, teams like this, groups like this, making LGBTQ plus people feel more comfortable in sports. And is that kind of like the main, not the reason for its existence, but is that like a big focus of the Rexes? Why are groups like this, like the Rainbow Rexes, and other LGBTQ plus teams in other sports? I know there's quite a few in rugby at the minute, which is great to see. Why are these important for people in the community and the wider sports community in general?
I think kind of reflecting back on what I said just a minute ago as well, LGBTQ plus people don't just exist in gay bars. LGBTQ plus people have hobbies and do other things and get involved in other things like lacrosse. And I think something like that isn't always recognised by people anywhere, really, that, LGBT people exist in any kind of space. So what teams like the Rainbow Rexes are able to do is not only shout about the fact that, LGBTQ plus people are everywhere, we do everything, but also allow LGBTQ plus people to feel more comfortable with getting involved with things like lacrosse. Like, this isn't just a straight only party. If you want to get involved, you absolutely can. And not only can you, but you should, because there's all these people here that will really want to see you get involved and are really excited for it. I think that's why it's important, because as a queer person, you might be worried about which spaces you can and can't go into. And with sports potentially being linked to things like toxic masculinity or potentially even homophobia, there's a lot of sometimes nervousness, I think, for our community, and kind of get involved in these kind of sports. And will this be challenging? Will it be easy? Will I benefit? Will I have to face discrimination? And the answer is potentially, but we're doing everything we can to make sure that that doesn't happen. And teams like ours is working on with other clubs to kind of create those safe spaces. So I think that's why LGBT clubs are really important in the sporting community.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think, having played men's league for most of my life, I mean, it's no secret, I'd love to pretend it's not, but obviously, toxic masculinity, casual homophobia, it does exist out there, unfortunately. Absolutely. But do you feel like we are seeing a change now in a positive direction, or, you'd hope that if there is a change, it would be in a positive direction in the way people, see LGBTQ plus people in sport, and the way people sort of interact with that, and the way they're treated? Is it starting to feel more welcoming, or is there still a long way to go? And what do we need to do on that long road?
I mean, that's such a question that you can unpack for hours, days, theses, books. I mean, I would say yes. In general, it is positive. Like, you are seeing, I mean, the sheer fact of our existence is, I mean, not to sing our own praises, but the fact that we exist and we enjoy games, and as Charlie said, that we never struggle to get fixtures. If anything, it's scheduling them. So I think that is a huge positive, and the fact that we've gone from, literally a slightly ragtail bunch to now a club, where we've got membership set up, we've got all those wonderful things. That clearly is a positive, and we have initiatives like we have an ally network, which is a network of, I think it's 25 clubs across the UK that are represented by the players that Charlie mentioned who play for other clubs. And what we've done with that network is say that basically there will be a player there who you might meet at a Rainbow game, but they will be there. They'll be a friendly face, or they are going to make sure that there are sort of EDI policies in place, that socials are welcoming, that, yada, 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 all that stuff that we need to be doing. We've helped build a network that ensures that is there. So those have been some monumental steps that we've taken alongside others, supported by others. But I would say we've spearheaded it. And that's still, to me, one of the slight issues that we are, we're at an exciting impasse for lacrosse as a sport. We're looking at new forms of, lacrosse, whether it's the Sixes, Olympics, lacrosse
this weekend, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, and it's all part of the same thing, because lacrosse is changing, and it's such a unique sport that we're at this moment where everything is at an exciting opportunity of growth. And you just have to make sure everything comes along with it. So one of the things where I'd say we are seeing sort of development you might have seen, like for the Tokyo Olympics, that there are trans athletes being represented, and are very much on that international sort of sporting stage, which is fantastic. But if you see equally, you might have seen about weightlifter Laurel Hubbard, who's representing New Zealand, they're still being discussed in the news. Their personal details, their medical history even, is still being discussed as if it's, I mean, I can't think of a cis athlete who might have had the same level of interrogation. Listeners, if I'm wrong, please tell me. But I mean, I honestly cannot think of an example, and so, yes, there's been that step, but still they are going through all these steps. And I think where we are now with things like the rainbows, but also LGBTQ plus initiatives, is we are starting to understand, this is a learning point for queer people as well, that intersectionality is key. And that's something I think where, it's essential that we move sport, but indeed all sort of facets of this argument. So if you look at the treatment of athletes like Sha'Carri, when she has been banned for come on, we all know what that was about, or the ban of the soul caps, because it's not this they don't match the natural shape of the head. Racism is as much an issue as homophobia, but it's part of the same resolution. And I think that's where the rainbows are trying to push, that we are as much about supporting people of color, people playing with disabilities, people that are neurodiverse, because ultimately a resolution for a queer person will hopefully and should help a person of color or a person with a disability, because it's all the same mantra. And I think that's where the progress hasn't happened yet. And one of my bugbears is always, I mean, often splits the community a bit, how we feel about Pride months, because it is that eye rolling thing of, here we go, Starbucks have whacked a rainbow on a thing.
Yeah, until the 31st.
Exactly, it's like, and then it's gone.
It's
but the
gone.
funny thing is like, exactly, yes, midnight and we're done. But you see it so much with sports clubs, and I mean, I saw it so much this year, and I'm trying not to be such a sort of like bitter person to people that are maybe doing it well-meaning. But I don't think I saw a single lacrosse club do a Pride post that even alluded to the racism prevalent in Pride. I mean, there were some lovely lacrosse clubs jumping on that sort of lovely bandwagon with all the good intentions, with, cis white people talking about it. And we're very aware that right now, even this conversation right now that we're having, I'm aware of that bias. And I think all three of us are, and I know we discussed it before the call. And it's not about saying that you have to then take steps to, still exclude people, but it's about being aware of that. And I think that's the thing that lacrosse is still eons away from understanding, because we do have these really positive steps to counter homophobia, racism. I mean, some of them are great, some of them aren't as effective, but there are steps there. I still think people are quite blinkered in the way they think about these issues. And I mean, again, we can unpack this some other time, but I think there is still a prevalent issue, particularly with the women's game, the fact that it is a private school sport. Men's doesn't have quite that same issue. I mean, let's face it, most people still play at university, and that's still an echelon of privilege that you've got to acknowledge.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I think, I remember only a few months ago, I went to some lacrosse weekend training camp thing, and it was perfectly nice. Everyone was lovely, but it was like an Enid Blyton reunion, I swear down. It was just like, and it was just it was just interchangeable, like people talking about what school they went to, and you think, oh, good God, I just, are we still doing this? Seriously? And I think that's where we fall down still majorly, and we do lacrosse a disservice, actually, because I'm not saying that you should ostracize anyone. Of course, someone's education isn't a defining factor, and it is not something I would ever admonish someone for. But being aware of that and thinking, right, what can I do now to engage with people? What can I do using my privilege to make a safe space? And I think that's something the Rainbows also need to step up and think more about, because we haven't been the best at it, maybe because we were still learning, and we're now very committed to thinking, what do we do to ensure everything we do brings everyone along with us? Otherwise, there's no point doing it. So I would say it's mostly positive. We have seen some great developments, but I really think now's not the time to think, just because we've got a trans athlete in the Olympics, it's sorted. Look at how they're being treated. Look at how still people of color are being treated for the Olympics. We're not there yet. But I think, as a sort of maybe a more optimistic note for any listeners who are queer or those communities, people are with you, and people are standing with you, and people are now fighting for you. So it is positive. We just have a long way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sums it up, pretty well. I mean, the answer is kind of yes, but, there is a big, but,
yeah.
I think one of the things you touched on at the beginning, which I didn't know about, and which I think is an incredible step that you're taking, is the ally network. I think that's such a, amazing idea, just having someone at clubs across the country to say, listen, it's not just, okay, all the gay people play for the Rainbow Rexes, and they all play over here, and then all the other straight people can play in the clubs. That's, it's great to have a space where you can go and you'll know that you're with, other people in the community, and you feel safe and comfortable. But that step at, saying, oh, these people also play in all these clubs, and if you go there, this will be someone who understands you, someone who makes sure that, you are treated properly, and that all these things are in place that need to be in place. And I think that kind of, is a great, not first step, obviously there's been a lot of steps, but it's a great next step into that, as you were saying, kind of moving into the wider lacrosse community and making the changes there. You say about it's kind of more difficult in the women's side of it and the men's side of it. I don't know a load about women's lacrosse. I've never played it. I've watched a few games of the uni and the women's team at uni, and I tried to follow a little bit of the NCAA. One thing we have talked on the show about before is there seems to be a lot more in terms of the, what a lot of people would call the woke social change stuff, especially happening in America. There seems to be very heavily in the men's side. We see that pushed quite a lot the same way a lot of sports, football at the minute is pushing all of the Black Lives Matter. We're doing a lot of Pride stuff over Pride Month. Unfortunately, we've seen a little bit less of it now, but we're still seeing a fair amount. Why do you think there is a difference in kind of, the stuff that's happening in the men's side, in the UK and abroad, and in the women's side? And how much of that is just because maybe more people watch professional men's lacrosse, so they feel the need to push this? I don't know if that makes sense. So it's a bit long-winded.
No, it makes sense. I think with men's lacrosse, like Ed was saying, when there's loads of teams around, there's so many ways to get involved with it. And then with women's lacrosse, there seems to kind of be two routes in, and there's through private school, sort of private school girls doing it at private school, and therefore it kind of being reserved for kind of the more wealthier individuals of the country. And then the other one is people like me who just join the university just for a laugh. And so you kind of get these two tiers of people that have been playing lacrosse their whole life through private school. These are the people that are getting into the sporting universities and playing for the higher teams and playing for the better clubs in the country because they've been playing for a long time. And then you get people like me who, even at the age of 24, I've been playing for a few years. And sort of, I know that I'm never going to reach that level kind of that these elite players are at. And it does kind of create that disparity. And kind of like what you said, how men's lacrosse does have more spectators, like has a bigger sort of fan base, kind of creating a bit more of a sporting culture, whereas women's lacrosse, much like many women's sports, just doesn't have that same kind of level of spectatorship. And so there's high levels of lacrosse. For me, what it feels like is that they're more based on performance and just getting really good athletes in and playing and winning. And then with men's lacrosse, because you've also got that fandom attached to it, it's kind of a lot more culturally based. I don't know if you feel the same way, Ed. Is that kind of your perspective on it?
I think no. I think that's a very. I mean, obviously, as a women's player, you've got the unique perspective here. I think it's definitely. I think the trouble with, well, the difference is that with men's, you could go in as a club player at 16, 17, 18 at uni, and you've actually got every other chance really of playing for Team England or Wales or whatever as anyone else there. The thing that's unfair with the women's is, if your parents weren't writing those checks, you're not going to get in. I mean, look at and obviously I have nothing but respect for the athletes of the England squads.
They still work very hard. I'm not.
They have still worked. I am not saying that, but the reality is, it's the difference between sort of training for, say, hockey and then going to play lacrosse. Yeah, you'll probably still be good if you've trained for something else even all your life, but it's not the same. You'll still be brilliant, and of course, I'm sure plenty of those players are. And of course, I'm very aware there are players who are in those international pools who have come through that route. It's just a lot harder, and it's this point about privilege. I'm sure everyone has now seen that video where people are taking a step, running a 100-meter dash, and you take a step forward for each privilege you have. It's just a good analogy. But it's the same with lacrosse, and I think that's where the women's game will forever struggle until it can break this, because ultimately, I am prepared to bet, well, I know because I used to umpire at schools nationals, it'll be the same 8 schools will be the roster. Where I have a bigger issue is, why are the coaching teams, the physios, the governance, they're all also from those places. And that to me is actually the problem, because then, of course, if your experience is a certain thing, you think, oh, that's the way to do it. Whereas if someone came in and said, well, actually, we were doing X, Y, Z and it still worked, you will get that perspective. So I don't actually really have a criticism in any way, nor should I, for the players or indeed even the coaching staff. I mean, they have expertise I could only dream of having. Where I do have a slight more, let's make a change because you actually can, is that governance level. Because actually even getting that perspective, and lacrosse is getting better, but I mean, sometimes we're a little bit blinkered. Go outside the sport of lacrosse. Look at what hockey did. Look at what rugby have done. That they had the same thing of rugby with men's, let's face it. For eons, it was just like certain schools were always going to win. I mean, and that's still a bit of that. But they have managed to push that out. What did they do? What can we learn from them? And I think we take that and run with it. But on a more grassroots level, men's, I think there's more autonomy maybe in men's. Maybe that's not fair. I think certainly men's has more opportunities because, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but there do seem to be more tournaments for men's lacrosse. And of course, tournaments are great because you can just grab people together and go. I mean, I know there are women's now, for example, at Bath 8s and Blues.
The Bath 8s women's team was only introduced within the last few years. It was primarily a men's tournament. Absolutely, yeah. I think when I went, it was only like the second year that, when I first went, it was only like the second or third year that they'd had women's. Whereas as far as I'm aware, Bath 8s existed for men's for a much, much longer time. It's those opportunities as well, beyond the opportunities you might get in like a private school or in a university, where there's other opportunities for other players. They don't exist. There would have been no way for me to get involved in lacrosse before I got into uni, because there just wasn't an access route for me at all. And I think that's one of the things that from a governance level, they could look at doing, introducing lacrosse into more schools beyond kind of those 8 that Ed has mentioned and things like that. I think that's because lacrosse is a fast growing sport. People are interested in it, but a lot of people just don't have the way to get into it. And I think we just need to open up more of those channels, and through the LGBTQ plus, Rainbow Rexes, we're kind of showing that there's more to lacrosse than kind of private school. And I think maybe hopefully we're in a step in the right direction for that.
But actually, Tom, I do think you made an interesting point, because I'm now thinking about the perception of men's lacrosse. I'm trying to think. It is interesting what you say, though, about it does seem to be the men's side make more public statements about some of these issues. I'm thinking, I mean, I know it was a men's thing, but for example, when the Iroquois weren't invited to the World Games, we could unpack that as well.
Yeah, that'd just be another rant that would go on.
That'll be another rant I've had. Yeah, exactly. But but that was interesting, because I mean, but I'm aware everyone from across the lacrosse community came behind that. But it is interesting. You've now got me thinking. I mean, because I definitely wouldn't say the men's side are any less problematic or bigoted, and I wouldn't say the women's are more.
God, no, absolutely not.
No, but you're right. Maybe it's because. This is a very stupid generalization, and sorry if this isn't anyone else's experience, but maybe because the men's, it's a bit more obvious when comments are made or something. It's more easy to deal with, because actually active bigotry is quite a good, you can call it out quite easily. Well, sorry, forgive me, it's not easy, but one can respond. There are processes, there are policies. Whereas I feel a lot of this slightly inherited bigotry or privilege, misunderstanding, again, I'm not criticizing anyone's point of views. I think that's harder to deal with, because if you have someone who has come through a certain lacrosse program where they, in their heart of hearts, have been told, lacrosse is played by private schools, it was invented by white people, which you see people come through 8 years of lacrosse believing that. They're not wrong actually for thinking that, if that's what they've been told. But that's a really harder thing to unpack. Whereas someone's using a term they should not, or a slur, or indeed even being hostile to a player, that's almost easier to deal with, or a more obvious way to deal with it. So, I mean, but certainly from my experience, actually, most of the bigotry I've ever experienced, to me, ironically, has always been when I'm officiating. Once it was a club game, and it was from another official, actually. And then once, the couple of other times. Oh yeah, well, that's a couple of other times. It was university games, right? And once was the Oxbridge varsity. but like, I think you're right. It's maybe more to do as a perception thing, and maybe it's more just people feel they can say these things in men's or something, and they'll get away with it. So we now have these policies because we're aware that these things happen. And in fairness, again, I mean, I'm not quite sure about NEM level. I'm sure they've got same stuff as SEMLA. There are things in place, and I've seen them be actioned, and there are a good bunch of people trying to do the best they can. So definitely there are things in place. I'm aware there are still problems, because you still sometimes can't believe the phone calls you have to have where you're like, homophobia happens. You do realize this.
Yeah.
And, I will never forget someone from a lacrosse governing body, who shall remain anonymous, telling me with all confidence he was surprised to learn of homophobia in sport, because he'd never seen it.
Oh, in that case.
Yeah.
I was like, it's like, oh, thank goodness, it's all sorted. Yay. But I was like, oh, and you've probably not seen any racism either, have you? I'm going to hazard against.
I wonder why.
No. I wonder what possible reason that could be. And you just
chances are, if you're a straight white male, you probably haven't experienced racism or homophobia.
Yeah.
Racism and homophobes aren't usually obvious. Yeah. If I take a bet.
But it is funny when you say that. Like, I say that with like laughing, because it is so ridiculous. But that's the thing that we're dealing with, I think, with some people lacrosse. You do have people who are they're not bad people. They are really dedicated. But of course, if that's your experience, if that's all you've seen, you are shocked when someone says, oh, you do realize this happens. And I do get that. And I think that was a good sort of learning curve for the Rainbows, that I didn't actually realize how much education or educating we still have to do. I didn't realize how many people still didn't realize that, I don't want to rant off the statistics because it's not pleasant for people to hear, but, the quite serious issues that are not just in lacrosse. We're not saying lacrosse is a problem. It's unfortunately a society in sport. But I didn't realize how many people really had never seen that or almost didn't believe it, because it is so traumatic to believe this is happening to people and this is what they live on their daily lives. I understand why people not in that community would almost think, I don't want to believe this, because it's awful when you see the statistics. But it has been quite edifying at the same time when you talk to quite senior people, and they really are just, I mean, perfectly helpful when they do get on board, but really shocked to hear that, oh, these things happen. Or my one was, people were shocked that there was like homophobia at universities. And I was like, just because you've got Bucks, who actually are a great organization, do everything. Like, you do realize just because someone's at uni doesn't mean they're a good person. It's quite the opposite, in fact. But I was like, you just think, I never thought I'd have to have this debate, but okay. But yeah, and I think that's still where we fall down. And I include all of us in it, because we all do it. We all sort of get a bit in our heads of, oh, well, I think it's this way. But it has been quite shocking to see that sometimes.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of maybe why you're seeing all the, negative stuff that's really sort of, in the news at the minute, especially around football, is because it's clearly not come out of nowhere. But to a lot of people, it kind of feels like it has, because they've never personally experienced it themselves, and people never really spoke up about it. And now people are. It's like, where did this come from? It's like, oh no, it's been going on forever. Yeah. We're just talking about it now.
And this is what they've said, isn't it? And the three black footballers for England who've experienced a lot of the hatred and the abuse, they've said in the statement that as soon as the game ended the way it did, they knew exactly what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And that is heartbreaking to me, and that nobody should have to experience that while doing the sport they love, whether it is racism or homophobia or any kind of other discrimination. It's really heartbreaking that people almost expect it, and that not just in football but in any sport. And there's a lot of, I feel like once upon a time sticking a flag on your logo was a huge move in terms of advocating for the LGBT community. Once upon a time that was a brave thing to do. Nowadays it's not enough. It's sort of, we're looking at the more nuanced ways, the kind of things that aren't as obvious, like Ed was saying about how to continue to progress. And it's things like tackling racism and transphobia in terms of the Olympics and trans people in sports. And is it as obvious as just putting a trans flag up? It's not enough anymore. People see the trans flag and they're still homophobic and they're still transphobic. So the things that we've got to do to continue to fight against homophobia are much more nuanced and probably a lot harder as well. So that's why it feels like we've come a long way, but there's still a long way to go because the steps are getting steeper. So
yeah, absolutely. But I think bringing it full circle from what you said about when those footballers, they missed the penalties and then immediately knew what was going to happen. I guess as we were saying, why are communities, why are groups like the Rainbow Rexes important? I guess that's one of the reasons, because you can play lacrosse and you can mess up without thinking that, without finishing a game going, oh right, okay, what's going to happen now? Is something like this going to happen during the game? From my own teammates, from people on the other team. So yes, it's great. We want to get across the board. We want to tackle homophobia, transphobia, all that stupid stuff. But also these groups are great because the places to go where that at least for this game, everyone's just going to be nice. You're not going to have those issues. So clearly that doesn't fix the problem, but I think that's a great thing that these groups can do for getting people into sports, because we don't have that worry
by example,
what's going to happen when I get there? Nothing. Everyone's lovely, hopefully. And then like obviously, like I said, I've already said, the stuff you're doing trying to get in further in the lacrosse community in the UK is really important and very admirable. So I guess that fully answers my question, why the Rainbow Rexes are important. Moving on slightly, we touched on this before. What's pandemic life been like for the Rexes? Obviously not getting out there playing games. How have you kept going, and what have you managed to get done when no one's really been doing anything?
So in the answer to the question, how it been for us during the pandemic, the answer is tricky. Just like a lot of the lacrosse community, there was long periods of time where we couldn't do anything. And the fact that we're not a local team, a lot of our members are based across the country. Me and Ed are like a couple 100 miles apart, for example. We couldn't even have the social element in person. There was nothing that, it makes it even harder because we're not even near each other. When we could do, we're allowed to go in pairs or groups of 6 at the local park. That doesn't really work for the Rexes because we're a big club and we are spread across the country. So what we've been able to do instead is look at kind of improving ourselves and developing the club. So, for example, my committee position is a new position that's come out of reviewing the committee when the committee's had less to do in terms of organising games. So a couple of new roles have been created and a couple of them have been tweaked a little bit just so that we can become even better at what we do. We've done online socials, we've planned lots of stuff online for ready when we escaped lockdown like the rest of the country. And so one of that is introduction of a few things like membership, which I think I'll probably touch on a bit later. But essentially what we've done is we've kind of looked at us as a club that does more than just play lacrosse and kind of had an opportunity to work on some of those in a bit more detail and kind of pull some of, with us being still a relatively new club, there's, some background work to do anyway. So I think we've managed to do a bit of that. And the Ally Network was something that came out of lockdown actually. And the reason why the Ally Network started actually was we knew that our members wanted to play some lacrosse and we were aware that out of the Rexes, maybe they wasn't sure which clubs would be LGBTQ plus friendly and, where could they go where they knew that maybe they wouldn't just be the only queer person there, or if they were, would they feel uncomfortable? So the Ally Network came out of us trying to work with those clubs so that our members could join them, could get involved with them while we were still kind of working behind the scenes, and also know that they're going to be safe while they're there. They're not going to face any discrimination and things like that because we have a Rectors approved ally in that club. Here's a list of them all. You can contact them if you want to know more. And that's kind of grown into the huge ally network that we have now, where we have these strong connections with other clubs to help kind of spread the message, basically.
Oh, it's brilliant that you've managed to get, stuff like that done during the, during the pandemic. At least something good come out of it. Are you starting to, now with restrictions lifted and stuff, Freedom Day, only a couple of days, or the Freedom Day, however long that lasts for, have you managed to get back out on the field much recently or at all?
Well, we recently had a friendly against Cambridge. So it was a mixed game friendly. We played a couple of games, a kind of first team game and a second team game so that everybody could play because there's quite a lot of people interested, as you can imagine. That was amazing. That was such a good fun day. The sun was out, lots of running was had. I was so exhausted at the end of it because we did like 2.5 games and I was either playing or reffing. So I was pretty battered at the end of it. But everyone had loads of fun there, and we actually met a few people from Cambridge that was interested in getting involved with us. Like this happens all the time. So that's one of the things that we have been able to do. And then we've got some stuff planned, haven't we, Ed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to add actually the men's and women's team both managed to get out as well. So men's had a game against Camden and women's went down to Canterbury. So surprisingly, we've actually managed sort of all right really for games. But as Charlie said, it's kind of, we're lucky because we have almost like a wait list of people that want games. So when an opportunity comes up or basically a weekend, we're like, right, we can just go, and you just get there. But yeah, as Charlie mentioned, we've got a couple more things coming up. So in August, we're off to the new Oxford Sixes tournament. So that's a weekend tournament for men's, women's mix. So we're going to be entering teams for all of them. We might even mention 2 mixed teams because it's we can obviously combine our teams up, but we'll definitely have at least one men's and women's as well. And then it's unbelievably, we're back round to Bath 8, which is in September or something. It's early September,
already,
isn't it? Yeah, so we've got that, and then we've got just so many other things as well. But those are all sort of locked and definitely coming, and people can still join us for them. We have a few spaces left. We've got to get in quick, but you can still join us to play those.
And what's kind of, for people who are thinking of joining, what's kind of the general experience level of the men's women's mixed side?
Complete range.
So varied.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's we literally have international players to people who, I mean, have played for a year to actually we've got a couple of our men's squad I know who've never played.
We've got a couple of girls players as well that are only recently picked up a stick,
Yeah.
The benefit of having different levels of teams is that anybody can get involved. I know I was a bit worried about it when I first heard about the Rexes. I was like, well, I'm still quite new to lacrosse. I know I've got a lot to work on. Am I going to be able to realistically get involved? And the answer is yes, you can.
Yeah. And what we've started doing, so there's kind of a game for everyone, is, we have so many potential fixtures now. That what we're starting doing, like Charlie mentioned, the great day we had against Cambridge, where we played whatever it was, 2.5 games, whatever it was. But we did sort of mixed level for that. But then for some of our tournaments where we're maybe going to play more competitively, we'll put out a slightly different squad. But others can still go along as well. We will just enter another team or whatever. We will never. You will never not play if you're in the Rainbows. If you want to play, you will play.
Yeah.
What we can do though is that equally players maybe want a more competitive game. Yeah, we'll do that as well. We can do both. We're actually looking at doing a sort of small local mini tour like maybe next year, because who knows what will happen. Because we did actually have one planned for last year. We were going to go off to Scotland, but then alas, that was all, but we're looking at that, and that would be the same thing. We want to have some of those competitive games that we might come away with a loss, but hey, it will be a really tough game. We want to have that experience through to let's get our beginners on the pitch. They're the starting lineup, and we will coach, umpire, whatever you need us to do to make sure you have a great game. So far, our captains, we've actually got four captains. Tilly Powell, who's our women's captain, Matt Naden, our men's captain, and then Kasim Ali and Chris Brenchley, who are our mixed co-captains. They do a really great job of sort of like team management and juggling. They have the most convoluted but beautiful spreadsheets, so that we make sure everyone gets games, but also we're putting the right people out for the right games. As in, if you want to play a competitive game and you've only played for 2 years, go for it, son. I'd love to see it. If you'd feel more comfortable playing people of your level, we'll of course do that. And just the great thing is that we're now at a point with our numbers and with our opposition sort of numbers that we can really start to almost curate a nice fixtures list that means everyone gets the game they want.
And Varvo's numbers, growing. You've got, you said 3 teams at the minute, potentially, 4 if you say you've got maybe 2 mixed teams. Do you expect that to keep going, keep blowing up? Is it going at a good rate?
I mean, it's difficult to say because it's been obviously a weird 12 months.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, this year's a bit of a you can't really tell anything from it. But Charlie mentioned membership, which actually I'll hand back to Charlie to tell us more about that. But since we've brought that in, we've got a better sense of like our committed players, as in really signed up. I know anecdotally off the top of my head, because when we started, we were so sort of, shall we say, slapdash, that's a polite way of saying it.
Yeah.
we set up a Facebook group for like, hey, this is a club. I mean, I know we've got, I think, 167 people in that group, and they're all people that have said they want to play. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Which is great from an administrative point of view. as someone who deals with spreadsheets, I'm like,
it's a nightmare.
But it's brilliant. Like, I mean, we have never struggled to get a team out. It's more us always now looking at, can we sneak in 2 games? Can we sneak in 3 games? But yeah, no, we brought in membership earlier, and actually Charlie led this great sort of membership sort of communication. So definitely I'm not the one to talk about it.
Yeah, so before, sort of with us being initially kind of a slapdash club, it made more sense to kind of just charge fees for games, just to cover the cost of like arranging for fixtures or for tournaments, things like that. But as we've got bigger, and like Ed said, we've got more and more people in that group, we kind of have more and more overheads, and it does make us more difficult for us to plan the year, not knowing kind of what income we're going to get or what interest we're going to get. So what we've introduced is a sort of membership package. What we didn't want to do is in the summer charge all of our members like pay £200 now, and then you don't have to pay anything for the rest of the year, because we know that's not effective. Because with us being a national club, some people might only be able to make 1 or 2 games a year, and it's not fair to ask them to pay £300 up front to cover the cost of that, and then other people pay the same amount but get way more out of the club. So what we've offered instead is a really small membership price. We're only asking for £30 off people, and then they pay match fees on top of that, so that it's kind of the amount the person pays is related to the amount that they get involved with the club. And then what we're doing with that membership package, that membership fee, is that money isn't just it's not for profit, because we're not a for-profit club. What that money does is it gets reinvested back into the club. So some of that goes into a pot of money which we reserve for people if they want to buy membership or kit or come to a game, but for whatever reason they can't afford it at that time. We've got a pot of money there to kind of help financially support those members, so that people from any background are able to join us at any point throughout the year. People who buy membership also get access to games. So we're now saying you need to have a membership to come to games. And also you get a really nice tasty 20% discount on kit from us. So people get 20% off like tinnies and shorts and things like that, and any other merchandise that we bring out throughout the year. And what that does is that money can go towards our overheads as well. So Ed mentioned earlier that we pay for a domain and a website and things like that. So it covers those costs without us having to worry about where that money is going to come from. And it also just covers kind of any other costs like photographers and things like that come up throughout the year. It essentially is making us more professional, you know, it's making us more structured. We can plan more throughout the year, knowing exactly what money we have in the bank, without really affecting the amount of money that our members spend on us as a club. So I'm really excited to bring this forward. It also means that we can track who actually is interested in playing with us and is committed to it, and who's just kind of in the group to be nosy. So not that there's anything wrong with that. It just means that when it comes to matches and stuff, we've got a better expectation of how many people might actually be interested. Things like Oxford and Bath 8s and Oxford 6 and Bath 8s, sort of helping us to organise that. And we know how many people want to come now, and we can plan for those teams and things like that. Like I said, if we're putting out 2 teams, it makes it easier for us to work out, okay, who's going to go on which team. You know, we're going to have a more competitive one and then more kind of relaxed one and things like that. So really excited to bring this out anyway. And yeah.
I think having that money there, like you said, for equipment and stuff is really, you know, good, especially because what we were talking about before about, you know, how people get into the sport, making it, you know, an easier sport to, you know, get your foot in the door. Because it's not cheap, you know, sticks and helmets and whatnot aren't cheap. So I think definitely having that there to, you know, be able to, you know, subsidize that or provide equipment for people who, you know, don't have their own. I think that's, you know, one of the most important things that every lacrosse club should probably be doing.
Absolutely.
For a time anyway.
Yeah, exactly. We've already managed to help someone with that, so we already know that that's being invested well. Because we don't want anyone to ever feel like they can't come to something because they don't have the money, because that's a really lonely feeling, and money shouldn't be a deciding factor in whether or not you can get involved with us as an LGBTQ plus club. Like, that shouldn't be relevant. So absolutely, it's something that we're really excited about.
And you did touch on the pennies and kits as well, and I will say some of the best kits for our lacrosse.
Fantastic kit, don't we?
Giant rainbow dinosaur. It's fantastic. I love it.
The kit's it's new kit. It's new kit. Ooh, so some of you might have recognized, well, you know, what's now going to be our sort of, what should we call it? Our founders kit, I suppose. So we brought out the kit that definitely is the reason people joined us. It was subtle, I believe. It was understated. It was, you know, very, very chic. We've actually got a new kit coming out for our members, because you know, looking forward to the next year. Like, as I say, next year's quite a monumental year for us because it's our 5th anniversary, birthday, whatever. It's also the 50th anniversary of Pride in the UK. So we kind of wanted to throw it back a bit, and we've come out with a new sort of slightly retro design. It's sort of it's still obviously a giant rainbow dinosaur. Don't worry.
Absolutely.
Good. Got worried there.
Oh yeah, I'll show you one. But we've got like more of a sort of like slightly vintage look to it, because we're sort of paying homage to why so many of us are here doing what we can do safely and happily. So next year's quite a big one for us, but if anyone is keen to become a member, you still can. You can become a member throughout the year. Of course, you become a member, you get the discount. And to be honest, I think it almost makes financial sense just to become a member if you just go buy the kit.
You make most of your money back straight away, don't you?
You make most of your money back straight away. Yeah. But I mean, definitely, if people want to join and get kit and stuff, you still can. You can obviously just get a penny and not be a member. If you just want to support us, you can still do that. You wouldn't get the discount, but you can still buy it. It's all the same form. It's all automated, lovely, easy stuff. But I think, we're really looking forward to that, and whatever next year is going to be, because we do have stuff planned. I mean, we've got obviously we've got our fixtures, our usual sort of suspects, you know, Bath, Blues Fest, Oxford, that kind of thing. We are looking at more and more sort of friendlies, and particularly what we're doing. So for these friendlies, obviously there's no fee to play in these, but it's for members only. But we're looking at really doing some more across the UK. I mean, we're pretty good. We've done, you know, as I say, we've kind of gone Canterbury, Cambridge. We're aware we're still quite southeasty, so we are definitely looking at other places, going up to Birmingham, Manchester, maybe up to Newcastle, Leeds. You know, it'd be great. So we just want to get in touch with us. Let us know when you want a game. but also we are looking at another tour. So, well, I say another, we never did the first one. We are looking at a tour, like we're hoping to go on a local tour somewhere, somewhere in the UK, which would be great, like probably a long weekend type thing. But then one of the most probably exciting things that we're bringing back is sort of another initiative we run called the Get Ahead program. So we founded this, it was the September before COVID. And it was kind of following on from thinking about intersectionality and us thinking, what can we do to really affect change, but in a meaningful way. It was particularly because we were coming up to sort of Black History Month, and that suffers, I think, in the same way as Pride Month, as it's a very sort of 30 days of showing respect and then you do nothing else. And we were thinking, what can we do? And we came up with this idea for a mentoring program that would be and bursary program that would be for LGBTQIA, people of color, players with disabilities, neurodiversity, who wanted to get ahead and get some experience in coaching, officiating, and lacrosse governance. So thinking more of the business side of it, but maybe want to actually make this a job or a cash flow for them. And we got some great support from the European Lacrosse Federation and actually received a grant from Luxembourg Lacrosse to run this. Oh, wow. So we we're going to do this pilot with 2 lacrosse clubs. We had set it all up. We were going to do it, and obviously COVID happened. But luckily, one of the candidates, who I think is from the Northwest, sorry if I'm wrong, who did the governance, did manage to complete it because it was done online. And they were mentored by St. Mitchellson, who is the president of the European Lacrosse Federation. And we've had nothing but positive feedback for what they learned in terms of business skills, but also lacrosse skills. And we're really keen to support her on their lacrosse career, wherever it takes them. If there's anything else we can do to support, whether it's, as I say, business training, whether it's help with giving you a reference. I know that sounds a bit odd for a sports club to say, but that's as much as part of it as playing, because that's what some people want to do. So we're bringing that back this year. We're probably going to launch it probably sometime this summer. And again, we'll be offering 4 sort of threads for it, which will be lacrosse governance, coaching, and officiating for men's and women's. We're still working out which clubs we'll be working with, but we're hoping to maybe give as many options as we can so that candidates are able to get to the club. The governance one will be run again with European Lacrosse Federation, where you'll be mentored by the president. You'll get to sit in on meetings, work on particular agendas pertaining to the development of international lacrosse, which is quite exciting. For coaching, you'll be working with a lead coach from a large club to develop your skills, learn some tips and whatever, but also eventually coach a bit yourself. And we will also get a bursary so that you can get a coaching qualification. Same for the officiating. You'll be shadowing one of our officials, whether it's doing men's, women's, whatever. We'll also give you a bursary to get the qualification and then help train you up so you feel confident to step onto that pitch and, enjoy lacrosse in whatever way you want to enjoy it. So I think that's one of the things I'm most excited about, because it was disappointing that we had recruited wonderful people. We got an incredible amount of applications, considering the first time we did it was a pilot, and then obviously we couldn't do it. But the fact that we can still run this program as Charlie mentioned, a very small non-profit organization that basically has bare minimum turnover, I'm just so pleased that we can still do this, and I really want this to grow and maybe become something that becomes a national program that we could advise on, but more and more clubs could get involved with it, offer their expertise as mentors, or indeed their games so that they can be officiated, that kind of thing. So that's a really exciting sort of thing that's coming sort of August, September this year.
Well, just before we go, is there, you've pretty, I know you've covered a lot of stuff in terms of like membership, the Ally Club and all that. Is there any last thing you want to put out there, even if it's just social media or whatnot? Where can people find you? Anything else that people should sign up for?
Anybody can get involved with us. I want to say that now. You don't have to be a member of the LGBTQ+ community. Obviously, we're inclusive of allies as well. And if you want to get involved, just drop us a message. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook. I think it's just Rainbow Rex Lacrosse or something along those lines. You'll know if you found us because our logo is a T-Rex and the rainbow, so it's fairly obvious. And then you can drop us a DM on there, or there's a link in our bio on Instagram to our website where we post updates. We've also posted information about membership, kit, things like that. all on there. If you're maybe a bit nervous, you don't have to pay the membership fee up front. You can come along to a friendly or something first before you decide it's for you. We're not going to ask you to pay money before you can get involved with us. If there's anything that you want to collaborate on with us with, if you want to organise a friendly, again, just drop us a message. We absolutely love speaking to people around the country who want to get involved with us. So please get in touch. That's about it from me, I think.
Right. No, that's it from me. Echoing Charlie, please join us.
Please,
if you've liked what you've heard,
people,
sign up. And if you can't join us, well, know that we're always here when you need us. And you can still reach out to us if you just need to have a chat or someone to reach out to. That's exactly what we're here for as much as anything else. So thank you so much. And thank you, Tom, for having us.
Thanks, Tom. No, it's been great.
Thank you for coming on and trusting me to be my first interviewees. What will hopefully be a series of interviews with people, in the lacrosse world around the UK. What a brilliant one to start with. Really appreciate you guys hopping on. And yeah, again, what you're doing is fantastic. And hopefully I'll be able to see you in real life at a game at some point, sometime, who knows. Either way, I'm definitely getting myself a rainbow dinosaur penny. Well, there you have it. That was the video. Thank you for sticking all the way through. I know it was a bit of a long one. Again, another huge thank you to Charlie and Edmund for hopping on and talking through this stuff with me. They know a lot more about this stuff than I, hence why we got them on to do the interview. I didn't sit here and talk to you about it myself. That would have been rubbish. Like I say, hopefully this will be the first in a series of these interviews. If you liked it, let us know. If you didn't like it, let us know, but don't be too mean. I will get sad, but I also don't want to make content that no one watches. It's a waste of everyone's time. I'm hopefully going to try and put this stuff out on Spotify soon, because that might be better for long interviews like this one. I feel like Spotify's a better place for podcasty stuff. Anyway, I always rather listen to people chat than watch people chat, but maybe that's different. Let me know if you'd rather just see these on YouTube and you don't care about listening to them. Let me know. If you don't want to see him on YouTube, you do want to see him on Spotify, let me know. Just tell me what you want me to do. I'll do it. Tell me what you want, I'll do it. That's probably not true. Tell me what you prefer, and I'll do it if it's easy. I can commit to that. But that's about all for today. Thanks for tuning in. We'll hopefully see you next time, either with another one of these interviews, or tune in normally every other Thursday on Seven Bridges Radio, 8 to 9 PM, Unnecessary Roughness. Come listen live, watch the videos, interact with us, talk to us, don't do drugs, stay in school, eat your veggies. Good night.